Welcome back to another video for the real Odyssey. Following the last video, which was the first trial, the trial of the Kykonus, of the sack of the Kykonus, I would argue the trial of comfort, as I would personally come to symbolize its meaning. Now we're going into the second video, again, trying to keep this short, straight to the point, and go from one to the other. If you want any more context, obviously go check the videos before this. You can start on number one, which is the trial of comfort. You can start there. I give enough information about the previous videos as well, and if you haven't seen them already, do check them out. The first video, which is talking about Penelope and the entire, pretty much the entire base story of the Odyssey, what it's about, and then the second video, which is pretty much the trial of the Axis. The third video so far being the first trial, which is the, I would argue, the, again, my interpretation, the way that I would describe it, is the trial of comfort. Now we're going into the second trial, the Lotus-Eaters, Lotophagi in Greek, Lotophagi. Basically guys that are eating lotus, which is pretty much, I would say, the trial of forgetfulness, or even better, I would say, the trial of escapism. Trying to escape the path and the journey home. So, again, trying to keep this short, to the point. Trying to keep true to the context, so I'm going to give you context of what happens in this trial, and then interpretation and symbolism on top of that. Again, if you have any questions on how far deep and all that stuff goes, check the other videos out. I'm not going to be repeating on every single one of these videos my history with regards to all of this, or try to justify any of these opinions or whatnot. Try to see the previous videos to actually see where I'm coming from and how this analysis is happening, what my experience is, generally these last 30 years with regards to total 42 of my life, but 30 years with regards to ancient Greek mythology, ancient Hellenic mythology, and so on and so forth. And also one very important thing that I mentioned in one of the videos is that a lot of this is a trial for the mind, not to accept things as they are, never accept them as they are, but for us to be able to put our own logic to use and to think of different symbolisms and connect different dots. It could be right, it could be wrong, it doesn't really matter, but it should help you, kind of like broaden your horizons and see things on a different kind of like, on a wider perspective, let's just say, that would allow you to actually approach these kind of stories in a different manner as well. So, let's get right into it. The overview. After escaping the Kykonus, a storm pushes them into some foreign, unknown land. Then he sends a man to scout, and he finds the Lotus-Eaters. Those guys give them some fruit to eat, the lotus, and basically once they consider them, they fall to blissful, dreamy kind of like forgetfulness. They are they lose the memory of home, their purpose, the journey, and they just want to stay there and keep eating the lotus. Basically Odysseus has to physically drag them back onto the ship so he can actually tie them down so they can leave. Now, symbolism, one of the main symbolism you can say behind this is that it is the trial of forgetfulness and the trial of escapism. The lotus does represent pretty much anything that offers easy, sweet numbness, distractions, addictions, comfort zones, substances, endless entertainment. Anything that makes us forget who we were, who we are, who we want to be, where we come from, where we are, and where we want to go. It is very important because it's like, the past, present, future are a coherent line that is always one and in the moment and in the now. That's, I guess, an analysis for another time, perhaps. It's a pretty straightforward one, but let's analyze this a little bit further. It's the temptations that we have, and usually at the beginning of a path, usually, once you do the first trial, which is, making the decision of going down the path, then what usually happens is, again, like I said last video, try to pay attention to these things and put them in perspective into things that might have happened in your whole life. Some people observe things and they know these things and they figure them out. Some people, I would argue, they are not observant enough or at all, and things just happen in their life and they just pass them by and they don't even notice what's really happening. But usually when we start down a specific path, usually a lot of distractions start happening and temptations to take us off that track. And usually those are pretty hard. Those are pretty powerful, strong distractions. And I think that ultimately for the largest part, that's one of the biggest things behind the Odyssey period. Like there's a lot of distractions, a lot of things that are taking him off the road, and he has to overcome all these distractions and slowly, regain his own personal consciousness and his own personal bearing before, as Odysseus, before heading back home. And if you notice, he comes back home by himself. I would argue that his fleet or the people that are with him are his emotions, his senses, they are parts of his own self. Kind of like the suitors, as I explained in the first video that I make, kind of like the suitors being, and also in the trial of the axis, I think I touched on it a little bit, but mostly on the first video, you know, the who is Penelope, kind of like the suitors being our inner demons, and why. If you want to go check that video out, I explain why that's the case. It's the same kind of thing here, you know, all our lower emotions, our temptations, our seductions, our addictions, our, you know, things that are pleasures, things that we enjoy, and those are usually like, you know, little things that could be like, you know, in our modern day, as small as just doom scrolling or video gaming, which, by the way, I love video gaming. I'm not saying anything against video gaming. Obviously, I make video games, I play video games, that's, you know, but you need to learn a balance. And if, like, you have to understand the difference between I gotta do something, like now, like example, of late, I haven't played any video games for about a month, maybe 2 months, and that's because I've been too deep into certain projects that I've been doing, that I see the games and I'm like, God damn, I want to play those games, I want to have some fun, I want to chill out. Titan Quest 2 has the Act 3, which is on Olympus. I've been saying this for so long, I want to try it out, I want to play it, I really want to enjoy it. I don't have the time because there are other more pressing matters. Now, in any other situation, what the Lotus-Eaters are is pretty much that situation that I just described now, but instead of actually working on what I have to work on, what I feel is actually inspiring and making me feel good, and working towards a certain direction, I give into that other lower base pleasure of just, you know what, it's baseless thinking, I don't have to think, I don't have to create, I can just enjoy a certain situation in my life. Sim racing, I've been away from sim racing for a while. I had some races last week. It's been a long time, I really enjoy it. I want to get back into sim racing. I don't have the time for it though, and we have to delegate our time and our programs in a certain way that when you have something to do, it has to take priority. Now, of course, I believe in balance being key in life, and we have to balance everything and have both our entertainment, our enjoyments, our creativity, our work. Everything has to be perfectly balanced in a certain manner in order for us to function properly as human beings, as souls, as personalities, as whatever you want to, you know, as however you want to present it. I would argue that this is kind of like that representation. This trial is those situations where we have little temptations and little things that are constantly veering us off the path, you know, and especially at the beginning of a journey, we notice a lot of those a lot. We notice a lot of those that are really dragging, and they become much more evident to the point that they're almost numbing, that they don't want to, like our body, again, these parts are part of Odysseus inside his own personal kind of, you know, psychological situations. Our own self is in conflict with this direction because it's still trying to understand what's going on here. You know, it's like, hey, I was just sacking cities in a 10-year war. I was having fun. You know what I mean? You made a choice for us to go into, you know, to head back home, but we didn't, like, you know, all these little sub-personalities within us and all these temptations and emotions, we didn't agree to this, you know what I mean? So they're trying to find ways, and that's when they speak the loudest, you know, when we start a journey. That's when we experience them the loudest, and they become much more evident as experiences, where they're starting to really kind of like, you know, create frustrations, temptations, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Again, this is like a very general kind of like thing that if you've observed certain moments in your life where you had to do certain things, how those temptations started to, you know, kind of like manifest. And again, like the last video, I talked a little bit about procrastination, which that wasn't the point of the video, so I didn't analyze it. Again, in this video, I can argue that that's one of the elements that it also kind of like, you know, kind of like directs into procrastination. You know, it is one of the phases or one of the catalysts. And he uses a lot of different kind of reasons behind it. Like some people could say that, you know, procrastination comes from people that are too smart and they fear of, you know, the fear of what they're doing not being good enough, or whatever the case may be. Like if you look at all the different translations, all the different kind of interpretations, all different descriptions of procrastination and what creates procrastination, at the end of the day, you'll see that these are different excuses that the conscious or the subconscious or all these different like temptations, all these different parts inside us are using and manifesting, so they can actually bring us back and create again a stagnation and stall us from moving on forward. Small little kind of like personal experience. Back in 2007, I think it was around about there, I had started doing meditation, which lasted me for about 2-3 years on a daily basis. I recall the first couple months, like it was a pretty long process. For many people it's shorter, for other people it's longer. For the first couple of months, I felt so much conflict against the meditation that I could not silence my mind. I could not relax and just rest for the life of me. I couldn't just chill out. I was feeling itchiness, I was feeling this, I was feeling that, I was getting too hot, I was getting too cold, I was getting, fidgety, my body was aching, like all this weird shit, as if, the body's trying to find ways to try and break you out of it. Once I found my rhythm, and it took a while, I can't remember if it was a month or if it was more than a month, probably it was like even more, maybe 2 months, and I was constantly trying every day until I found my rhythm, and then after that it was just, boom, I'm in the zone. And not only that, but every time I would do a meditation after that, I reached a certain state where it's like, so peaceful that I would feel rejuvenated. And once I come out of it and awaken from it, I feel as if I've slept for like 5-6 hours from a 25-minute meditation session. So the results were great. Obviously, I have cut down because, again, I guess it's an excuse. I just said that before, like procrastination creates a lot of excuses. Maybe that's my excuse. I don't have time for it now, I guess. I haven't done meditation for the last 15 years. Around about there, in the last 15 years, I've started on and off, but really, for the most part, the last 15 years, I haven't been doing any meditation. About 3 years ago, I started again a little bit for about a couple of months, but then I kind of veered off again. So I guess that's, perhaps it's my demons to fight, whatever. Just a small kind of like personal experience there too, which is of a very different kind of nature. It's not so much something that's happening in life or procrastination, other stuff. But even in that case, I noticed the same thing, that I wanted to start something. I wanted to get into doing meditation and take it seriously. I was like, I want to start doing meditation. And my entire body just, as soon as I started going down the path, was trying to find ways to, get me to feel uncomfortable. Because it couldn't seduce me with any comforts, it was trying to create that situation feel like as if it was uncomfortable. Okay? Instead of trying to distract me with addictions and whatnot, because I was already in a state where I'm just, I'm meditating, it couldn't distract me with something. It couldn't find like, a video or a film or, a music or a song or a conversation or something to distract me with. My eyes are closed, I'm in that state. So it's like, holy shit, I got nothing to distract him with. I'm going to use his own body. He's going to feel itchy, he's going to feel this, he's going to do that. And it was a pain in the ass until I overcome it, and I gracefully asked for that side of me to just calm down, and I accepted that side and that whole combat, that battle. I guess with Odysseus, the other approach is to drag them back into the ships and tie them down. That's what it's symbolizing here, that you gotta take hold of all those emotions. I would argue that is not the best way to go about it if you want to take it as literal symbolism. I think that the symbolism here, what it's trying to show more, is that you need to tie it down. Again, it has the symbolism of taking control, taking the reins of something, so controlling something. And there are different ways of taking control, and I would argue that the best way to take control of your own self is to come to reconciliation and let the energy kind of like float away and just negate itself. I would argue, because if it is going into the direction of being more physically aggressive with regards to those inner parts of himself, that I would argue that that's one of the main reasons, that aggression, that prolonged his journey so much, and each trial was slowly helping him out more and more to finally get control of himself. Again, check the first video out, The Real Odyssey, who is Penelope, which kind of explains there again what the whole point of the Odyssey is, which is gaining control of oneself and then striking true, so we can return home and reunite ourselves with the light. So that's the second video. The Lotus-Eaters, again in Greek, lotophagi, and I would argue that this is a better probably way of saying it, is the trial of escapism. You could say the trial of forgetfulness. It's pretty much also, I guess, the trial of temptation, but I think there's some better trials that are on to take the name of temptation, so I'll leave it at that. Trial of escapism. And that's pretty much it for the second video. Let's see if we can actually keep this rolling and going at a pretty good pace and have all these videos out before the abomination of Nolan hits the theaters. Again, as always, if you enjoy this content, subscribe, like, blah blah, the rest of it. Don't take any of this at face value. These are interpretations, there are symbolisms. Those of us that know, we know, but it doesn't mean anything in the end of the day. Like, it's your interpretation and your ability to analyze these things that is going to help you to kind of form different kind of thought patterns and improve and increase your ability for free thinking. Ultimately, at the end of this series, I am going to go back and make some comparisons to the Odyssey, Nolan's Odyssey, just so I can drive the whole point home at the end of all of this with a comparison of how off and how much they've destroyed the actual true story of the Odyssey. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, peace be with you.